Today's video, Card Fighters, is going to feature one of my favorite decks in the Stoicaean Nation, which is Mythiarq. This deck received some very powerful support a couple of sets ago, and as we move forward into the next season of Cardfight Vanguard Divine Z, this will be one of the fun decks that I'll continue experimenting with and showcasing on the channel. Mythiarq, I believe, has a very unique and fun matchup against a lot of decks. You have the discard effect and a lot of random control abilities to take advantage of that can throw your opponent for a loop, and there's a lot of different ways you can approach this deck because of how generic it is outside of a couple of key pieces. We're going to be breaking down this deck, discussing the relevancy of all the cards that I play, what I think about the deck moving forward, and how it fits into the current meta. And since this is the very first deck profile of the year, to anybody new to the channel, welcome to the Prime Vanguard channel. My name is Cassius, I am the host and creator of this channel. Everything on my channel features Cardfight Vanguard content, from deck profiles to anime reactions, as well as Cardfight Vanguard discussion videos. I love this game, I have a huge passion for it, and I just enjoy exploring every aspect of it, from the low tier to the high tier parts of this game. Now, with that being said, for the old and new, I think we all know what this means when it comes up. If you guys enjoy seeing content like this, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Do not forget to hit the notification bell so you will always get my newest videos to come out. To start this deck profile off right, you guys, this is the Mythiarq ride line for the Mythiarq archetype. Now, time and time again, this ride line has proven to be the best one for Mythiarq and our game plan and our strategy. For those of you that are unfamiliar with Mythiarq is all about, they are units that gains abilities and different effects based off the number of different Mythiarq units that you have on board, usually requiring 3 or more units. Our ride line, Luruthzul, requires 5 units in play to get access to her on-place Vanguard effect, so our grade 1 and grade 2 is set up for that. Both of them sharing the same ability, which is when they are rode upon by each other, they may call themselves to rearguard circle from soul and then apply an effect based on the ability or circumstances of how many Mythiarq units that you have. For Ilandrina, this one gives 5k to anything called in front of it, and then for Luruthzul, this one lets you soul charge one and then prevent one of your opponent's units from intercepting. You'll have a grade 1 and a grade 2 unit onto the board prior to your Vanguard's effect coming to kick in and call out a new unit and apply a different effect, but these cards are really great for offensive reasons. Obviously, giving 5k to anything in front of it and being a booster means that your grade 2 units should be able to make a magic number right away, and then Luruthzul knocking out Interceptor means that it's less defensive option for our opponent to have, while also applying us a resource that we can use for the deck, which is Soul. For our very first grade 3 of the deck, it is going to be 3 copies of Mythiarq Luruthuzul. The Prime Vanguard of this deck, Mythiarq Luruthuzul, is still a very fantastic and fun Vanguard to play. She has 2 powerful abilities that happen on the Vanguard circle, and they read as followed. The first one states, auto when this unit is placed on Vanguard circle, look at the top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 grade 3 or less unit card from among them, call it to rearguard circle, and shuffle the deck. If you have 5 or more units, your opponent chooses a card from their hand and discards it. Auto Vanguard circle, when this unit attacks a Vanguard, cost counterblast 1. Choose one of your rear guards with Mythiarq in its card name, return it to hand, and choose up to 1 unit with Mythiarq in its different card name from the card returned by this effect from hand, and call it to rearguard circle. Now, the game plan going into Luruthzul is pretty clear. Once you go into our Vanguard, the effect of our grade 1 and grade 2 should have been active by now. The Vanguard will count itself as 3 Mythiarq units, we'll call something else out, then we should have 4 Mythiarq units on board. We have other effects called other Mythiarq units prior to this, and some of Mythiarq's count as 2 names now. So getting that discard effect off Luruthzul is very important for maintaining our offense. In standard format, because of the shield value that we have, and the key pieces that are very important in card advantage in a lot of decks, holding on to certain pieces to your next turn is important, and losing a card prior to attacks or the card effects being applied can be devastating. One card can really make a difference throughout the entirety of the game. Luruthzul being able to get rid of that card is fantastic while applying a body on board completely for free. Our Vanguard gives us 4 attacks as well as a double superior call because of the first effect when placed on the Vanguard circle, and the secondary skill letting us reset one of our Mythiarq pieces to be used later. After 3 waves of support, we have plenty of different Mythiarq names to choose from, so there'll never be an issue with this effect, and it's a lot better compared to the first deck build that we had. Luruthzul will give us 4 attacks, a discard, while also applying free board to our field and maintaining our offensive pressure by resetting those control effects that Mythiarq units have to keep the game going in our favor. For my next grade 3, it is going to be 2 copies of the Mythiarq Portial. Mythiarq Portial is one of the newer Mythiarq cards, but it is a fantastic card at that. It has 2 effects, where the first one states, continuous, when you would count the number of units for the ability of a unit with Mythiarq in its card name, this unit may be counted as 2 units. Auto rearguard circle, when this unit attacks, if you have 5 more units of Mythiarq in their card names, this unit gets power plus 10,000 to the end of that battle. In the current format of Vanguard right now, decks like Levidras, Varga just got new supports. These decks hit very hard and very fast in the early game, especially Levidras. Levidras being able to subtract your power from your rear guards is very huge. Varga also has the ability to completely clear your entire board. This card, to me, feels like an answer for both of those situations. Being able to give 10k power to yourself prior to any of their cards, effects, or triggers means that you automatically make yourself a magic number. Also, counting itself as 2 different names means that once you go into this card on Luruthzul, if you have your ride line active, and then if you have Luruthzul in play, this card automatically gives you the setup needed to trigger your Vanguard's discard effect right away. Or at least be enough different names so when you are maintaining the board, you'll have 3 different Mythiarq names in play to keep your effects going. Now for my Regardless piece, I'm choosing Bracing Angel Ladder. If you ever played with Mythiarq, then you would know that control is one of the hardest matchups for this deck. Losing your rear guards, but also having to maintain a board to get all of your effects is a big challenge for this deck. Thanks to Bracing Angel Ladder, not only do we get soul, draw, and power to our Vanguard for the turn, but we gain a resist effect protecting us from all card effects against our opponent. Being able to protect your rear guards from those control matchups that you're not expecting to play against gives you the chance to fight back for an additional turn to hit your opponent with your beat stick pieces, card effects, and then trigger all of your effects like your Persona Ride skills, or whatever it may be that you might need other rear guards for. Now moving on to grade 2s, my first grade 2 is 4 copies of the Energy Cycler C Rumble Brave Shooter. C Rumble Brave Shooter is probably one of the best Stoicheia cards out there right now. Being able to convert itself into any piece that you want during your Persona Ride turn is fantastic. It can help set up our formations, our attack patterns, get resource pieces that we might not be playing a lot of, and have a lot of different cards to try during the late game where every single decision will matter twice as much because some decks, especially this one, cannot survive the grind game. The ride cycling skill is also important, being able to maintain your card advantage throughout the entire game, defensively speaking, or during your turn. Obviously fantastic. Energy is also not a big resource that this deck uses a lot outside of this card, so you should never have to be worried about being in that situation. But whether it be the early game or the late game, C Rumble Brave Shooter is a fantastic unit to take advantage of in any Stoicheia deck. For my next card, I am playing 4 copies of Mythiarq Guardian Delphinia. Mythiarq Guardian Delphinia is the promo support piece for Mythiarq. This unit has improved our resource card advantage as well as our offense 10th fold. Having 2 effects, the first one states that at the end of the battle, your Vanguard Mythiarq and its card named attack to grade 3 or greater unit, cost Soul Blast 1, stand this unit, and it gets power plus 10,000 until the end of turn. Auto rearguard circle at the end of your turn if you have 3 more units of Mythiarq in their card names, cost retire this unit. Choose a card from your drop with Mythiarq in its card name different from this card and put it into hand. Delphinia gives us 5 attacks, gives us the opportunity to recycle our Persona Ride or any of our key Mythiarq pieces that we might need going into the following turn. It's a fantastic resource and offensive piece, and I like the fact that in this case it's all together because of how the deck works. We have ways of getting this card back to us, we have ways of Xperia calling out. Delphinia is always something that we can take advantage of at any time period in the game, whether it be in the early game or the late game for the offensive pressure or the card advantage benefit. Now for some familiar faces, my next card is going to be 3 copies of Mythiarq Myumillion. One of the original Mythiarq cards, Myumillion continues to be a fantastic setup piece for this deck. Its first ability lets you reset one of your Mythiarq pieces by binding the rear guard and then calling it back out to get any on-call effects off or on-place abilities off for this unit. But its first skill has actually become more relevant in the current format. On place, when this card is called out, if you have 3 Mythiarq units, you may Soul Blast 1, give this card 5k, and then also choose one of your opponent's rear guards and paralyze it. That unit will not be able to stand during the next turn, but still has the power to intercept. Right now, a lot of decks have on boost effects or when this unit attacks, or even some defensive effects right now, like in certain decks like Alden, if you want to go for a defensive build or a tankier build, Blaine Demeyer's booster that gives you the 4 attacks, the grade 2 unit that has the ability to become critical, you have the new Levidras grade 1 that can give your Vanguard a huge buff. There's a lot of targets to actually choose with Myumillion now, and because Mythiarq has no form of retire, this is the best form of control that we're going to get in this deck. It matters a lot because being able to slow your opponent down or force them to rearrange their board or commit extra cards from their hand to get their formation right actually is really imperative. And because a lot of the grade 1 units are targets of this effect, they're going to have to call over them anyway to get it back going. A lot of decks are not playing revival cards right now or even generic revival cards in Stoicheia decks, or Blaine Demeyer doesn't have access itself, which means that we can slow down their key grade 1 pieces that are really annoying us and their strategy. Million's Paralyze and Reset effect makes it a great support piece or offensive piece depending on what the strategy needs and what we desire. That Paralysis skill is definitely something I want you guys to keep in mind when you play against this deck, because it will come in handy. For my next card, I am playing 3 copies of Mythiarq Luruthuzul. Mythiarq Luruthuzul is one of the new grade 2 support pieces for Mythiarq that has one of our best offensive skills yet. For a counterblast of 1, when this card is placed via a card effect, you get to draw a card, and then when this unit attacks, your opponent must call 2 or more cards from their hand to the Guardian Circle. A Battle Door effect that gives us a +1 draw to hand to make up for calling this via from hand or other card effects to support our resources. Luruthuzul is one of our better offensive pieces outside of Portial that we can call during the battle phase depending on what is required. For Portial, if we need more power to beat down an opponent, we can go for him for different names, or if we need something that can help us guarantee some extra cards out of our opponent's hand and they're towards the end of the game, Luruthuzul is the route to go. The extra defensive skill can really change the tide of games after you apply the discard effect from Luruthzul. Now for my grade 1s, I am playing 2 copies of Mythiarq Elandrina. As I played tested this deck more and more, I realized that power is going to be a key thing that Mythiarq needs. And while the next wave of support that we got with the Portial, Luruthzul, and the grade 1 I'm going to showcase next have definitely been fantastic supports to this card, you can't beat the classics. Elandrina being 5k units, anything that we call it in the front row, or anything that is new in the front row that has been called in front of it, means that we can maintain a consistent 5k benefit to that card to make sure that our numbers always hit a good magic number against our opponent when we're doing our multiple attack strategies. And because Mythiarq's multiple attack strategies is via calling out new units with one unit only gaining a standing effect, we have units that can maintain this power, or units that are going to need this power buff when called out during the battle phase to keep up with any of our opponent's defensive skills that they might have to slow us down. 2 copies of Mythiarq Luruthzul. Mythiarq Luruthzul is our countercharger for Mythiarq. When we have 3 or more face down damage, we may countercharge 1 if we have 3 or more units of Mythiarq in their card name. This card is fantastic obviously for maintaining our CC, a resource that while we don't use much of, if we do need it back in the game, we have Luruthzul to help us get it back. Outside of Luruthzul and one other card which is escaping right now, oh wait that's right, Luruthzul, we don't really eat up CB for anything. But if we do need the extra counterblast because we're using Hervey in the early game to draw extra cards, Mythiarq Luruthzul is a fantastic card to help maintain this while holding onto the Mythiarq name. And the MVP of the Mythiarq grade 1 slots, we have 4 copies of Mythiarq Rizumi. Mythiarq Rizumi is one of the best supporting pieces for Mythiarq, a key card to our entire strategy with 2 very powerful but simple effects. So the first one states that in the drop zone, when your grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Mythiarq in its card name is placed during your ride phase, perform one of the following. If you have no units with the same card name as this card, you may call this card to Rearguard Circle. If you have a unit with the same card name as this card, call Soul Blast 1 and put this card on the bottom of the deck and draw a card. Continuous back row center Rearguard Circle during your turn. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, all of your front row units of Mythiarq in their card names get power plus 5,000. Rizumi is a fantastic support piece for this deck. Being able to call itself from the drop zone during the ride phase means that when we go into Luruthzul, if we threw this card out in the earlier game for ride up, we can call this card back out to capitalize on both of its effects that it might have for us, whether it be to draw or to gain power in the front row for our turn. It's also another Mythiarq name that we have on the board or unit that we have on the board for our other card effects, but really to trigger Luruthzul to guarantee that we have that 1 extra body on board so our opponent has to discard a card from our hand. The draw effect is also crazy as well. If you get duplicates of this card, it never goes to waste, as you'll be able to Soul Blast 1, bot deck the other copy to draw a card and make it for the card you discarded while riding up, before you get access to the secondary effect of the other one that have in drop zone to call it out from that, where you can take advantage of its most important skill, which is continuously giving 5k power to all your Mythiarq units in the front row. Units like Luruthzul, Portial, Mirror Million, all of these cards are great because they get 5k power to themselves. And while people make fun of 5k power, when it comes up, it comes up. And Rizumi being able to get another 5k butt to the front row throughout the entirety of the turn is fantastic. We need this extra power to help maintain our aggression and our matchups with decks that can reduce our power like Levidras, or decks that can eat away at our board like Varga, where we're calling out these 2 units, cycling them out, getting power continuously, and then with cards like Elandrina that apply 5k buff on top of that, we should be able to maintain a magic number on our cards at all times prior to Persona Ride triggers and other card effects. Rizumi has just been a fantastic offense as well as card advantage piece for this deck and truly is a staple to our grade 1 line. Without 4 of these, or if this card never existing, I don't think Mythiarq would be playable at all. Next up, I have 4 Sentinels, one of them being the Blitz Order Elementaria, and then 3 copies of the generic Stoicheia Sentinel. I feel like it's really important right now that you actually take advantage of your Elementarias if you have them. G-Decks will be making a comeback, whether it be at the end of this month or next month, and with Messiah and Chronojet getting support, and Shiranui still being the dominating powerhouse that it is, G-Decks aren't going away anytime soon. Now for my trigger lineup, I keep it pretty nice and simple with this deck. I actually feel like this is the best route to go for the current format. I am playing a total of 8 criticals in this deck. I am playing 3 draws, 1 copy of the Stoicheia Over Trigger, as well as 4 heal triggers for my build. I think that right now it's very important that we just keep it nice and simple. You need crits because this deck is doing 5 attacks and you need to maximize damage as soon as possible since you no longer have the early game rush cards that you had in the prior build, and the card advantage of this deck is a lot better with the pure Mythiarch support. The Stoicheia OT because it's my favorite OT in the game, design-wise and effect-wise, and I just think that because this deck already guarantees 5 attacks, you need more power, you need the crit, you need the draw, you need the front benefit and the heal. It's all good. There's no reason to replace the Stoicheia OT. Now for my last 2 cards of the deck, it is 2 copies of the Order Mythiarch Habitat. One of the best supporting Stoicheia orders. This card essentially is a grade 1 variation of Luruthzul. You get to check top 7, call out any piece. We have a lot of pieces in the early game that we actually do want to see. We want to see Elandrinas, we want to see other Mythiarch names onto the board to make sure that we're good for Luruthzul. Also, Habitat is a fantastic way of compressing your deck some more outside of your Luruthzul's effect and your draw skills to see more triggers when you start attacking in the later game and you're setting up your Persona Ride plays, or you need Delphinius for those multi-attacks, Poor Shield for different names. This card can become whatever you want it to be, and the fact that it can add itself back to hand when called out via another card effects makes it a fantastic supporting piece for this deck. And it's its own archetype too. Mythiarch, as I've stated already, is one of my favorite decks in the Stoicheia Nation, and while the deck has received some fantastic support, this is still a D tier deck. Unfortunately, Mythiarch does not have the speed to keep up with the other decks in the format. It doesn't hit as hard enough. It's very susceptible to control matchups, as well as the fact that it is now very piece reliant. If you don't see Delphinias in your turn 3 or more, you're missing on the 5 attacks. You can't rush in the early game if you don't have certain cards to get going. If you miss out in your Izumi in the early game when you're going second, or if you're on your grade 3 turn of 4 or more, it's really bad, and this deck needs Persona Ride to maintain the power threshold so it can fight decks like Varga and Levi-Drusk consistently. I do think that it has the chance to be good. It has a lot of great things going for it. It has revival pieces now. You have the discard skill, which is more consistent. You have Marielish for battle door effects. Myramillion becomes more valuable with its paralysis skill. The deck is not unplayable. It's not the worst it's ever been. The power up that it got for the deck was actually really huge, but unfortunately I just don't think it's there yet. However, if you guys know something about Mythiarch that I don't, please let me know in the comment section below and let's get a discussion going. With that being said, both card fighters and to the new people who are now subscribed to the channel, thank you so much for staying tuned throughout the entirety of this video. I will catch y'all later. Peace.